Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video, I wanted to talk about the presence of a person who loves God, or the presence of a person who is highly spiritually evolved. Now, this is nothing related to rational phenomena, or this is nothing that can be explained. This is completely irrational and very unintellectual. And of course, there has never been proof of this in science or in rational philosophies that we have in this world. But I want to explain this on the basis of my travels and my experiences in meeting these people, in meeting a lot of higher spiritually advanced people and talking to them and being in their presence. Now, now, this can be probably explained through some of the physics that goes on inside, especially the physics related to waves and how our brain emits different kinds of waves, like the beta waves or the alpha waves and the omega waves. I'm really not sure about the specific research done about on these things, but I will try to explain this through my experience and what I have experienced. Now, here in India, I'm very fortunate to be here because I meet a lot of people who are very highly spiritually advanced. They are not really materialistically motivated, they are motivated by their spiritual endeavors. And you can see and meet a lot of people who are somehow connected to any kind of spiritual tradition. So, for example, here you will find a lot of Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and a lot of people who are somehow related to some kind of spiritual tradition. And of course, there are a lot of conflicts in their beliefs too. But to me, to me, that doesn't make any difference. A person who is connected to a spiritual tradition is somehow related to spirituality, and he is feeling something that a person who is materialistically motivated is not feeling. So whatever it may be, whatever kind of outer spiritual tradition that you may follow, if you are spiritual, then you are content in your life. Somehow you have found a way of being happy in your life. So this is something that is completely irrational and cannot really be, and probably is not the focus of a lot of our scientists and physicists. But I have, in the research I was doing, I found a couple of papers that are, I don't know if they are credible or not. So I wouldn't really call this thing that I'm talking about here today a very rational or an intellectual thing. It is somehow very irrational, and it is something that is unseen. It cannot be seen at all, and it cannot be explained even. So we humans have a lot of things that we contradict upon. So we are a combination of rational and irrational personalities. For example, our relations can be very irrational, and our emotions can be very irrational, but yet we might be inclined towards rationality, and we say things about the universe and try to accept things about the universe as rational theories, but we might do a lot of irrational things. So, so I wanted to talk about the presence of a spiritually advanced soul. Now, now this perception, or this sense of feeling a person can only be can only happen to a person when he has understood that the substratum of the universe is not matter. When we look at people in the material terms, that is, when we look at people as flesh and bone, then we then our minds are only seeing flesh and bone. It is not seeing the unseen that is behind the eyes of a person. It is not seeing the soul or the consciousness behind the person. But it but it is but for a person who is spiritually related, has he has understood that human beings are souls, that we are consciousness, that we are something that is unseen, that we are that prior to matter, prior to this body, we are something that is beyond this body. Now, when you look at this, you look at the world through this perspective, through the perspective that the basis of the universe is consciousness and soul, then you will start to evolve this sense of consciousness and this sense of soul. And when you start to be in a conscious state, or when you start to be in your soul and be connected to your soul more and more, you'll start to see, and you'll start to perceive some things that are unseen. You'll start to perceive irrational things. You'll start to get an intuition that some things are bad and some things are not bad. You'll start to become coherent with the world. You will start to become synchronous with nature. Now, Ian McGilchrist and a lot of and writes in his he writes in his book Master and His Emissary, in which he argues about the meta crisis that we are all facing here. There is something unique about human species, that is, in the sense that we now have crossed a lot of boundaries in terms of climate change, in terms of a lot of risks that we should look into. We have crossed a lot of human species. We have so many tools and weapons that we can destroy the whole earth in a matter of seconds and in a matter of buttons. In a few clicks, we are able to make a catastrophic in this whole earth. Now, this is unique to human species. There are obviously other species who are violent, but they are not as violent as human beings have become. And, and in his book, Ian McGilchrist talks about how we have lost our connection with the sacred, with the right hemisphere of our brain, and we have given the control over to the left hemisphere. Now, when we have lost this sense of sacredness, we have kind of become uh, people who want to achieve short term things. We want to have control over everything. We have become more power oriented. And if you look at the Abrahamic religions that we have here uh, in this universe, if we see then we look at the concept of Satan. Satan is always regarded as something that is left-handed, or something that is left brain. Now, when we follow the left side of our brain, we are kind of following Satan. There is an interesting correlation between these things, and I believe that all of the Abrahamic religions are very metaphoric in nature. But let's come back to the topic of seeing the world through the substratum of the universe as consciousness. And when you start to be in your soul, and when you start to connect with your right brain instead of your left brain, which is always trying to make you do things, which is always trying to get you things, and which is always wanting to have short term gratification. And when you try to connect to the sacredness of this universe, you'll start to become more and more natural. When you become more natural, you start to see people not as flesh and bones, not as some biological entities, but you will start to see them as minds, and further, you will start to see them as beyond minds. You start to see them as soul. And when this happens, you get more closer and closer to the substratum of the universe. Now, human beings are unique in also this perspective that human beings are conscious, that they have a fully developed right brain, that they are creative, that they are able to be conscious of themselves. Dogs and other lower animals are not in the way more advanced in these terms. Human beings are more advanced in communication. Human beings are more advanced in making scientifically progressing ourselves, which which other animals are not capable of doing. But human beings are also special in the way that they are conscious, that they are fully conscious human beings. Now, when you connect and when you look at the world and when you look at this life as a dance in this space of consciousness, you start to perceive things in your life. You start to see the actions and you start to perceive the wisdom that can be only achieved when you look at the world through this lens of consciousness. Now consider this idea and work on it for 1 week, and you will see how your perspective suddenly changes. Imagine that everything that you interact with is conscious. Imagine that everything that you have already interacted with was conscious, and you yourself are utmost and in every experience first consciousness and then the experience. Now, when you do this, you will start to perceive some things that are closely related to waves. Um, you'll start to perceive these waves. You'll start to see that a person who is in meditation, when you get close to them, you'll start to see that there is something that is coming out of them, that your inner soul, that this consciousness is perceiving something that is very silent, and somehow you are able to sense it. Now, this is what I call love. When you are in love with someone, there is an environment that is created. When you are in, this environment is created in the atmosphere, and you emit this environment, and a person can know that someone is in love when you are in their surrounding. Now, when your heart becomes full of love, then you will start to generate this this wave that is emitting outside through your soul. The feelings that we have, the feelings that we hold inside, is somehow perceivable to other human beings. If you are angry, your body your bodily actions will somehow show that you are angry. Not just this, your whole demeanor suddenly changes, the way you talk changes. Now, this perception can be enhanced when you are looking at the world through consciousness. You can sense a person is angry, you can sense a person who is in love, you can sense a person who is in meditative contemplation, you can sense a person who is thinking a lot, or who is depressed, or who is stressed, because it is a communication that is happening through waves, through waves that are perceivable only through your soul. Now, in this silence that you will start to understand that even silence is somehow communicating. You start to see that when you are in the presence of such people, you're feeling a kind of love, peace, divinity, and this is somehow strange but inexplainable. It is the unseen. It is something that that is received in your soul. It is something that is perceived by your heart, and then you start to perceive the peace. You start to perceive the love that a person is emitting, and this emission is sometimes very strong. And if you are sensitive enough, if you are sensitive, and if you have developed your consciousness, you have cleared your mind enough, then this perception and this communication can be very strong. So, so learning to listen to the silence, you will learn to get a glimpse of what in Taoism is called the Tao. So, love is also very misinterpreted in this world. Love is not something that you need someone in front of you to love them. You can fill your heart with love instantaneously if you make your heart coherent. And when this instantaneous love, when this feeling is so saturated that it becomes super saturated, it then flows outwards, because it cannot be held inside a body, and then it flows outwards. And this love happens regardless of whether there is an object of love. This is the love of this love requires it doesn't require anything. We usually think that the mind thinks that if you require something, the mind thinks in a very transactional manner. The mind thinks, and this can also be due to our capitalistic mindset. We always think in transactional manner. Even if somebody does good to us, we think that maybe we have to return this good somehow, and we kind of use this transactional mentality in spirituality also. But you must understand that in order to love, you don't need a transaction. And when you reach this state, when your heart is coherent, and when your heart is filled with love for unknown reasons, it is filled with love, only with life, only with existence, then it is super saturated at some point, and this love flows outwards. It becomes it becomes uncontrollable in this body, and it moves outwards. The peace that a person feels, when the peace becomes too much, it is sent out to the world, to the surroundings, to the environment. If you go to a person's grave, especially a grave of a person who has who was a very spiritually evolved person, then there is something that lingers around the grave of this person, around the shrine of this person. There is a kind of love, there is a kind of peace that is surrounding this grave for unknown reasons. And that is when conception of true love happens in your heart. You are filled with love for no reason, and this love then can be received by anybody who is in their surroundings. So here in India, we always adore our saints and sages for this reason, because they emit something that is peaceful, that is something divine, and in their presence you feel this divinity. So thank you for watching this video.